Welcome to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating piece of poetic analysis, one that bridges the gap between everyday micro-interactions and massive, continent-spanning ambition. We're going to look at a totally unique text that takes the rhythmic beauty of poetry and applies it directly to industrial economics. It's this brilliant blend of heart and hustle, and I absolutely cannot wait to share it with you.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to take a second and just imagine the small businesses in your neighborhood. Think about your local grocer, maybe the neighborhood tailor, or the person who fixes your shoes on the street. We usually love these folks for their specific, highly focused skills, right? But what if they didn't just stay in their lane? What if your favorite local vendor scaled up so massively that they sold absolutely everything? Imagine your local micro businesses scaling infinitely to just dominate the entire market. It sounds intense, doesn't it? Well, that is exactly the thought experiment we're exploring today.
Just listen to how the source material introduces this concept. The piece opens with these reflective, incredibly rhythmic lines. My beloved Malam vendor, you sell just a few things, but I wish you sold all things. Right out of the gate, we get this beautiful sense of intimacy, calling them a beloved vendor, but it's paired with this sweeping, almost staggering wish for total expansion. It's not a critique of the vendor at all. It's a deep, yearning wish for their absolute limitless growth. Now, to really understand this vision, we have to look at the author behind the words. This piece, which is titled Musings, the Dangote Mindset, was written by Oluyomi Oladevid. She is a writer and thinker who perfectly blends her deep personal convictions with these really broad economic philosophies. As we go through this explainer, you're going to see how her unique background absolutely shapes every single line she writes. Her perspective is exactly what makes this so much more than just a simple poem. If we break down her bio from the source, her motivations become crystal clear. She describes herself as a proud Nigerian who genuinely just loves people. She's deeply concerned with global development and transformation, and she's out there actively generating solutions to influence policy and strategy. But what grounds her entirely is her faith. She explicitly states that her Father God owns and rules the universe, calling him the wheel within my wheels. So, when she writes about vendors and tailors, she isn't just looking at random workers. She's looking at her people through a lens of profound faith, wishing for their ultimate elevation.
Let's move into section 1, the desire for scale, from niche to everything.
This brings us straight to the thematic core of her poem. It's all about the intense juxtaposition between the small-scale charm of everyday life and her massive-scale ambition. Think about the reality of a skillful tailor who sews only embroidery, or a farmer who grows only tomatoes. She definitely appreciates these niche workers, and she sees their skill. But then we see her true desire. She wishes that tailor designed literally all clothes and that the farmer cultivated all vegetables. She doesn't just want them to do a little better. She wants them to achieve absolute, total dominance in their fields. And she continues to illustrate this recurring theme across a huge variety of everyday professions. A scrap buyer dealing only in metals? No, she wants him to deal in all waste. A shoemaker polishing a few shoes? She wishes he shined all shoes. She's taking this grand vision of total scale and applying it to literally every sector of the local economy. In her mind, no job is too small for this kind of limitless expansion. What's really striking here is the everyday ecosystem she chooses to highlight. She's talking about handymen, fruit traders, tailors, scrap buyers, and perfumers. These are the grassroots drivers of the economy. And this focus ties directly into the metadata tags she included at the end of her piece, specifically the tags People Matter and Voices Matter. She is taking the most common, often overlooked professions and daring to project them onto a stage of unimaginable scale. Section 2, the Dangote Mindset Metaphor, the ultimate African conglomerate. So, to really grasp the overarching metaphor of this explainer, we have to look at the actual title of her piece. To represent this limitless expansion, she uses a very specific, real-world symbol, the Dangote Group. Founded by Aliko Dangote, this massive Nigerian multinational conglomerate is her absolute ultimate metaphor for the all things ambition. In her tags, she explicitly refers to this as the rich mindset, and it makes sense, right? The Dangote Group is basically inescapable in African industry, dealing in cement, sugar, salt, and so much more. They don't just participate in markets, they define them. So the crucial point here is this. She wants the micro-entrepreneur, the local fruit trader, or the neighborhood handyman to adopt the limitless ambition of a literal megacorporation. The Dangote mindset isn't just about making a little more money on the side. It's about a complete fundamental transition from a local trader to an inescapable industrial powerhouse. She's essentially challenging the everyday worker to totally shift how they view their own potential.
Moving right along to Section 3, Industrializing Africa's Future, the philosophy behind the poem.
Let's zoom out from the literal lines of the poem for a second and dive into her broader worldview. One of the most telling metadata tags she uses at the very end of her text is normative economics. If you aren't familiar with that term, normative economics is a perspective that reflects ideological, prescriptive judgments toward economic development. It doesn't just describe how the economy currently works, it focuses heavily on what the economy ought to be. So, by tagging her poem with this exact term, she's explicitly telling us that her verses are a vision of a future she believes should exist, not just some whimsical reflection of reality.
And what's super interesting is how her other tags build on this whole philosophy. She includes tags like Industrialize Africa, Ode to Industry, Value Judgment, and Trade. But then, right alongside those heavy academic economic terms, she includes words like sweetness and chief customer friendliness. She views this massive continent-wide industrial vision not as something cold and corporate, but as something fundamentally good. To her, scaling up industry is an act of sweetness that directly betters the lives of the people she loves. Finally, we reach Section 4, the scale versus niche dilemma, the cost of all things. This brings us to a really important analytical crossroads. We have to ask, what are the actual implications of this grand mindset? We need to contrast the charm of those micro-interactions she clearly loves with the intense reality of a single entity controlling all things. Consider the beauty of the specialist, the soothing perfumer, who carefully crafts a few unique scents. Now contrast that with the raw power of a monopoly making literally all oils. When a business scales to do absolutely everything, do we lose that soothing, unassuming charm that made the local vendor so beloved in the first place? It's a fascinating tension baked right into her work. And we can see how this builds to an absolute extreme. Listen to this stanza. My praying friend, you pray only 5 times, but I wish you prayed all times. This is where the poem gets slightly humorous but also incredibly revealing. She pushes this Dangote mindset so far that she demands scale even in the spiritual realm. She takes a dedicated religious practice, praying 5 times a day, and basically says, no, that's a niche. I want you to scale that to all times. It absolutely proves that for her, this mindset isn't just about business, it's a total lifestyle of boundless, non-stop expansion.
Which leaves us with this final, overarching question to reflect on. Is ultimate success found in beautifully mastering a single niche, or in relentlessly scaling to provide all things? Oluyomi David's vision is a powerful, normative call for the Dangote mindset, a genuine plea for everyday people to dream of total industrial dominance. It's an incredibly provocative way to look at our local economies and really our own personal ambitions. So what do you think? Are you striving to perfect your few things, or are you aiming for all things? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the scale of your own potential.